guys, so I'm going to show you how I make my Protein Kodiak Pancakes. These are one of my favorite meals, 316 calories, even with peanut butter and syrup on it, and around 24 grams of protein just under that, with egg whites using Kodiak mix. I buy this giant one from Costco. Any brand of egg whites is fine. So quarter cup of Kodiak mix, quarter cup of egg whites. I use a little bit of whey protein. So I found this cinnamon roll from Optimum Nutrition to blend really good with these pancakes. I use a tablespoon of that, dash of cinnamon, dash of vanilla, dash of salt, and just to thicken them up and make them a little bit more volume, I throw in a little psyllium husk. Any brand of psyllium husk would be fine. I would just make sure, like this one I got off of Amazon, ingredients include organic psyllium husk powder. That's it. 10 calories in 1 teaspoon. So I do use a teaspoon of that in the pancake mix. So it thickens it a little bit. It allows me to add a little water. And so volume goes a little farther. There's a lot of research coming out that is saying increased fiber in the diet increases longevity and overall health and decreases metabolic issues. So I do try and make sure that I get enough fiber. This is something that would be a fairly high fiber meal without having fruits and vegetables. Fruits and vegetables are always great to incorporate in your diet, which I do in other meals. But when I can add something in to a meal other than that, I will. So I'll mix this up and kind of show you guys what I do. I do use a griddle for it just because I found it to heat more evenly distributed across the pancakes, because I do make them a little thin. And so I preheat my griddle to 325 degrees. I pre-make multiple batches of this, so kind of as many as I'm willing to make. Takes a little bit of time to do, but today's a day off and John likes to eat these too. So I'll make probably anywhere from 4 to 6 batches, which will get us through at least a couple days of us both eating it. And I will put them in the fridge, and that way they're ready to grab and go. Again, one of the easiest ways to stay on track is to have your food ready, packaged. John gets home, he's hungry, he wants to grab something. If you don't have a meal prepackaged or food pre-made, it's very easy to have a tendency to go to junk food. And then you just have something you can eat, something you can put down. And on average, they show if you do go to junk food rather than healthy whole foods, you'll tend to overconsume by around 500 calories per day, just in the mere fact that you're consuming junk food. So I try and stay away from that whenever I can. And part of that is planning ahead. So we'll go ahead and dish this up, and I'll show you guys kind of the consistency that I make in these pancakes with how much water I add. So quarter cup of Kodiak mix. I just kind of level off. I use like 2 of these glass containers, 2 cup measurements. Volume ends up being about right in that. This is Kodiak mix. I just put it in a different container so that it stays fresh. I have a tablespoon that I'm going to use on the Optimum Nutrition whey protein. You could use any brand of whey protein if you want. You could leave that part out if you don't like whey protein or can't eat it. So 1 tablespoon in each of those. 1 teaspoon of psyllium husk. Again, I just leave my teaspoon in there because I make these often. A dash of salt. They taste a little bland without salt. A little dash of vanilla. Measure with your heart, as they say, right? Cinnamon. I use quite a bit of cinnamon in these, personally. If you don't like cinnamon or can't eat cinnamon, leave it out. Makes them smell really good though when you warm them up. and then a 1/4 cup of egg whites. Grab a whisk. Okay, and then I just take these right over to the sink and put a little bit of water in them. All right, so I added water to the mix. It ends up being about 1.5 cups, and I usually let it sit for a couple minutes. The psyllium husk absorbs the water, and so it does thicken. When you put that much water in initially, it is very, very, very runny. If you try and pour it on a griddle, it will not end up well. And there is definitely an art to this, so you're gonna have to play around with it. My daughter tried to make the recipe and she really struggled, but the more you do it, the better you'll get at it. I mean, this one has a little bit more than 1.5 cups total. So, I mean, it's still pretty runny consistency, but it is a little thicker. I mean, it's not sloshing out of the container when I mix it up. So I have 2 griddles going just because I do make a larger volume. I'm gonna spray them with some nonstick spray. And then I make these pretty small. Again, the griddle is preheated to 325. Honestly, what I end up doing is I end up putting them in these Pyrex glass dishes. So I make them about the right size to fit in there. And that way I can warm them up in a glass container when I go to work, or even at home, I don't have to dirty another dish. So here these are cooking. You can see as you cook them, like these I just poured on, you know, pretty thin, pretty liquidy. Do not try and flip them at this point. It will have a giant mess. But these look like they're about ready to flip for me. And every griddle cooks slightly differently. So even between my 2 griddles, this black one cooks differently than the gray one. So there is an art to this. You have to play around with it and figure out what works for you and what works for your equipment that you have. So there, I'll let them cook down. They tend to boil up a little bit, and I'm sure that's all the water that's mixed in with the psyllium. So there, those are in the middle of cooking. I'll let those cook a little bit longer. So these here that I started first on the black griddle, to me they look like they're about ready. So I can take them off and put them in my glass storage container. Whoops, sometimes a little slippery. So they are flat, what you'd call flat pancakes. You could roll them if you want to roll them and dip them in syrup or something. John mixes a little bit of sugar-free jam on his when he lays them out on a plate, in addition to a little bit of sugar-free syrup. I tend to use half light syrup, half sugar-free, because I don't really like the taste of the sugar-free, but I need to keep my overall calories low. So here's when I just, finished up that mix. That's what they look like when you first put them on, but if you let them cook a little bit, they start looking like this. These ones are getting close to flipping, maybe. This griddle tends to fool you. I'll let these cook a little longer on that side. It'll make it easier to flip them. And this is all one batch. So this is all one serving. So here since I'm making so many batches today, I mixed up another container of all the mix, and I'll let this sit while the other ones cook and while it thickens. So this is when I first put all the water in. It is liquid like water. Here's the one that I made in the beginning. So I'll cook this one second. So it's definitely a little thicker. So just give it time. You do have to be very patient with these. If you decide to add the psyllium husk, if you don't care about the psyllium husk, probably makes it a little simpler. You just won't get very many pancakes with a 1/4 cup of mix. All right, so I've got my pancakes all made. I did end up making 5 batches, as you can see here. I have 2 in plastic containers, 2 in glass containers, and then 1 ready to eat now. So next up is I measure out my peanut butter. I tend to weigh the peanut butter, which might sound weird, but I feel like I'm less likely to overeat on it. This is what I prefer to eat. Adams, I like the crunchy. It's 190 calories in 2 tablespoons, so 32 grams. So I do half of that. I do 16 grams on my pancakes, which is about 95 calories. Peanut butter is a fat source made from peanuts. This is just peanuts and salt. So very healthy choice for a fat source. However, fat sources are very caloric, so you do need to monitor how much you're eating of that. This is another one that I often will buy and filter in, the Kirkland Organic Creamy Peanut Butter. It's a little bit lower calories, 90 calories per tablespoon, and again, use 1 tablespoon or 16 grams is what I measure out to be. So I'll measure this on the scale. I've already got it zeroed there. And then I also do syrup. So any brand of light syrup, I just watch what the calories are. So this is 50 calories in 2 tablespoons or 30 mils. And again, I measure this out on the scale just because it's easier to measure. I can switch this form of measurement on the scale. 2 mils. Just take that off for a second here. Zero it. So with my plate on, this is what I would do after the peanut butter. I can change the unit, so there's the mils, and so it makes it very easy to be very accurate on the syrup measurement. So 30 mils of the light syrup is what I use in addition to, this is just the sugar-free option that I find at Safeway or Albertsons. It's 5 calories in 2 tablespoons, so 5 calories in 30 mils. So essentially free, but I don't like the taste of only the sugar-free, so I tend to mix them half and half and do 30 mils of each. And then my syrup total ends up being 55 calories on my pancakes. So everything all together, pancakes with the syrup that I use, with the peanut butter that I use, I think I said 317 calories. We'll include a photo of all of the breakdown in MyFitnessPal of the meal that I put together of these pancakes. So here it is all weighed out, measured out as far as peanut butter and syrup goes. And see, that's a decent amount of syrup on there. I like the peanut butter. You could leave it out if you need to keep your calories a little lower. Always you can adjust the meals to fit what your protein goals are and your calorie goals are. I tend to keep this meal very consistent, and then if I need to modify my calories at the end of the day, I will subtract it from one of the later meals and maybe go lower carb later in the day.